UFC Fight Night Vegas 38, Santos versus Walker is now in the rearview mirror. It's time to start looking forwards. This is every single fight to make after UFC Vegas 38. I've got all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now, and you may notice there is an empty box next to each and every one of them, and I'm going to find their next opponent from around the perimeter of the screen and place them where they belong on this screen, starting with the main event, Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. Very forgettable main event, but still, Thiago Santos was the winner over 5 rounds, barely outlanded Johnny Walker in a couple of the rounds, which gave him the win. Very uneventful main event, however, their next opponents could be some good ones. I know Thiago Santos did call out Alexander Rakic and Jiri Prochazka and names like this. He said that Rakic has boring fights, not realizing that he was in Rakic's last boring fight. Either way, Thiago Santos called out some of the top names. After a performance like that, you don't get any of the top names. That's just how it works. I know you also asked for some more money as well. You're lucky to still be in the UFC. That performance was terrible to watch, but oh well, he'll still get a next opponent. It's not going to be one of the top guys of the division, in my opinion. I believe that Thiago Santos needs to take on the winner of Ankalaev versus Ozdemir, which I do believe is going to be Magomed Ankalaev. This creates good movement in the light heavyweight division, and I think it's just a natural thing to do. Thiago Santos just came off a win. You can now use his name against another prospect on the rise, like Magomed Ankalaev or Volkan Ozdemir if he does get an upset win. I doubt that's going to happen. I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev here, and you've got to move Magomed Ankalaev somewhere closer towards a title shot, and in my opinion, you can't use Glover Teixeira or Jan Blachowicz' name. I believe the loser of Blachowicz versus Teixeira is without a doubt going to retire from the sport of MMA. I don't think you can use them to sort of leapfrog some other contender. So Thiago Santos, after that performance, you can now take on the winner of Ankalaev Ozdemir. And for Johnny Walker, different situation. I feel like he actually has got a new style that could work in that division if he just lands a few more shots per round and actually tries to win out there rather than knowing that he's been outlanded and refusing to change anything whatsoever. Maybe he needs to change his gym in the first place. Even still, Johnny Walker needs a fight in the light heavyweight division. He didn't take any damage whatsoever. It's going to be a ranked opponent as well, so I thought, why not do the loser of Volkan Ozdemir versus Magomed Ankalaev, which I believe is going to be Volkan Ozdemir, and that's the matchup that I would like to see made. It's a good fight. Ozdemir's got power, but he's also kind of chinny as well, and Johnny Walker, of course, could be the guy to go out there and get the job done by KO over Volkan Ozdemir. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ozdemir has done to change his game moving forward, because he's had the same style for a while now. He's taken a bit of time off since the Jiri Prochazka loss. Now he's getting back in there with Ankalaev. I believe he's going to lose to Magomed Ankalaev, which sets him up perfectly for Johnny Walker because he's going to be barely in the top 10, number 11 or 12, and more importantly, he's not going to have much choice over who he faces next because he's on a losing streak. The UFC doesn't even need him. He's not a big name. He doesn't draw a lot of attention from the fans whatsoever. They pay him quite a decent amount of money that they don't need to be paying him. So in my opinion, what the UFC is going to do, they're going to watch Ozdemir lose to Magomed Ankalaev and say, you know what, Ozdemir, you can either take on Johnny Walker or we're going to give you the next big up-and-comer from outside the rankings, ranked opponent or unranked opponent. You make your choice, Ozdemir, or Bellator. The decision is yours. I'm sure he'll accept a Johnny Walker fight real quick, and I think that should be made. I was looking at maybe a Ryan Spann and Nikita Krylov. They both have fought Johnny Walker before. I'd rather a fresh matchup. Let's do Johnny Walker versus Volkan Ozdemir. Plus, I don't see Ankalaev KOing Ozdemir. I see him just winning a 3-round decision. So, Ozdemir can turn around pretty quickly. Let's get him in there with Johnny Walker. Moving on to the co-main events. Kevin Holland versus Kyle Dorcus. Ended in a very weird manner. Head clash leading to a chokeout from Dorcus, overturned to a no contest. I know a lot of people are talking about maybe doing a rematch. I watched a couple of interviews. Kyle Dorcus says he's going to be preparing with Chris Dorcus for his fight against Derek Lewis in December, and he may be able to come back about February, March of next year. That's just not how Kevin Holland plays his game. I think he has improved his grappling. I think he's going to try and stay active in the middleweight division. I don't think a rematch is the thing to make right now, and in all honesty, I was not a fan of this matchup in the first place. Dorcus is nowhere near Kevin Holland in the rankings. I think it's time to give Holland a loser in the middleweight division, coming off a loss, maybe on a loss streak right now as well, who's a bit closer to himself in the rankings, that makes more sense as a matchup, and I think that matchup is Ian Heinich versus Kevin Holland. He's a decent grappler, is Ian Heinich. He's not bad on the ground, and I think he'd be a good test for Kevin Holland here. Plus, Ian Heinich likes to stand up and brawl a little bit, and I think that Kevin Holland could definitely win this matchup, and I think he will get this one done against Ian Heinich. Great matchup, though, and I'd really look forward to it. Holland, we need to get him back in the mix in the middleweight division, and I'd rather he do that against a guy who's somewhat close to the rankings. Unclick! Why is this thing not unclicking right now? There you go. God, I know you could hear me sweating and frantically smashing that fucking mouse. I don't know why it's not unclicking. Either way. Holland versus Heinich. Now that my fucking seizure is over. Holland versus Heinich, great matchup. Heinich just outside the rankings. Why are we giving Kyle Dorcus a jump up into the rankings? It made no sense in the first place. I believe he's ranked outside the top 40. At least Heinich is in the top 20. Let's make that matchup in December, immediately. Last fighter card of the year, Holland versus Heinich. Moving on to Kyle Dorcus, who also had a no contest in the main event. He wants to turn around early next year. I think he should be looking to take on a guy like Tom Breeze. I know it's a downgrade for him, but still, it's an opponent. And listen, yeah, he was coming off a loss and he was outside the top 40. He does not deserve a Holland, really. I know he arguably would have beaten him or was looking good against him, but the head clash was the main reason why he looked good against Kevin Holland. Before that, he was just holding on to him against the cage while Holland just slapped him in the face over and over again and talked to DC. So, Dorcus, Tom Breeze, bit more of a reasonable matchup for him. I think that's one that could happen early next year in February or March. Make that one happen. Moving on, maybe we could have a rematch with these two down the line, and the storyline would be there to make it happen. They're both young. It could happen. We'll see how things go. Moving on to the feature fight. Niko Price took on Alex Oliveira. He won that bout against Alex Oliveira. I think his next opponent should be the James Krause. I know Niko Price called out a bunch of ranked opponents. I don't see him getting any of those ranked opponents, in all honesty. I think the performance just was not a statement enough to now start calling out other names in that division, like maybe a D-Rod or a Jeff Neal or something like that. I know he had a loss to Jeff Neal before. Don't see Jeff Neal looking to run that one back. And Niko Price, it just wasn't really... If he had Niko Priced Alex Oliveira and KO'd him in some weird, spectacular fashion, maybe you could justify a ranked opponent or like a Diaz or something like that. But in my opinion, you activate the James Krause card here, bring him back early next year, maybe in February, or even at the end of this year if Niko Price wants to stay active. I know he has about 50 kids, so he has to keep them fed. James Krause. Bring him back, the James Krause. I know he doesn't take fights often, but I think he'll look at Niko Price's style and think to himself, you know what? I'll take that matchup. Niko Price looked very slow against Alex Oliveira. Very drunk on the feet against Alex Oliveira as well. I think James Krause will be licking his lips at that matchup, knowing that he's got a good chance of getting his win bonus, which is how James Krause looks at taking fights, and the winner of that one could then look towards the rankings, look towards the big names in the welterweight division, and that would be justifiable to jump them up the rankings after a win. Moving on to another fight that occurred on the card, Jamie Mullarkey got an amazing win on the prelims. I said it on the recap video that I did. I think he was the MVP of the card, and I think he needs a jump up in the lightweight division. I think that jump up is Vince Pichel from hell. He had a fight recently. He looked very good in that fight as well. I believe he's on a 3-fight winning streak right now in the lightweight division, and honestly, he's kind of a good test for Jamie Mullarkey right now. Mullarkey's beaten some chinnier guys like Devontae Smith and Kamar Worthy that can break. They don't have too much heart. They're all fast twitch muscle. They slow down. They're a bit chinny as well. I think he needs to take on a real tough guy who can grind and go for long amounts of time in a fight. Vince Pichel is one of those guys. He's experienced. He has KO power. He's got good grappling. He's got good stand-up. He's got good cardio as the fight goes on. He's got a good chin as well. This would show us what level Jamie Mullarkey is really on, because Vince Pichel is one of those guys where if you can't get past him, there's problems for your career. But if you can, and if you can look good against Vince Pichel, you're actually somewhat okay, because I know Vince Pichel hasn't really been too much of a big name throughout his career, but he's actually a decent journeyman in the lightweight division. I think it's a great fight. It will show us how good Mullarkey is. If he can finish a guy like Vince Pichel, he's got great power. If he can beat him in the later rounds, he's got even better cardio than Vince Pichel. This is just a good test, and I believe he'll bring out the best of Jamie Mullarkey in their next bout. And plus, Mullarkey's only like top 40, so he's going to get a jump up reasonably against Vince Pichel. Then look for another name, maybe an Ottoman Azaitar, and then the winner of that one can get a ranked opponent. Moving on to another fighter who won on the card, Alexander Hernandez got a big win against Breeden. Can't even remember his first name. I think it was Mike Breeden. Got a KO in the first round. Alexander Hernandez didn't get a performance bonus, which was very weird, but, you know. It was a short notice replacement. He was supposed to do that to him. But a good win by Alexander Hernandez, and he called out his next opponent, and I agree with it, Leonardo Santos. I know he's a bit older, but it was the original matchup that was made for Alexander Hernandez, and I believe they should run it back. I originally maybe suggested that probably they could do Hernandez versus Paddy Pimblett, but I think Hernandez is too far up the rankings, and people don't realise how high up the rankings Alexander Hernandez is outside the top 15. He's like number 17, 18. Like, he beat Beneil Dariush to start his career. He beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier when I believe he was ranked in the top 15 at one point in the lightweight division. Alexander Hernandez does have some decent wins in the division that are keeping him quite highly ranked, and a fight against Paddy Pimblett is so far down the rankings for him. I like the matchup. Him versus Leonardo Santos in December, in January, in February. Let's make the fight happen. I do believe Alexander Hernandez will win. And plus, he mentioned it himself in the post-fight speech. I've just trained 8 weeks for this guy. Let me use that 8 weeks of training on this guy. Santos got pulled out. I'm sure he'll be back soon. Let's rebook that fight whenever it does happen. Winner of that one gets a ranked opponent in the lightweight division. I think that'd be a good matchup. Speaking of Paddy Pimblett, though, Jared Gordon had a good win against Joe Solecki in a Jared Gordon kind of way, which is never really too impressive. But he called out Paddy Pimblett afterwards, and let's make the fight happen, Paddy Pimblett. I wish I could have used a fatter version of his face here to be a little bit more realistic with the current state of himself. Either way, Paddy Pimblett said yes. So let's just make the fight, because it's very difficult to get fights made nowadays. So if a guy calls someone out with a reason to call them out, and the guy who's been called out immediately says, yes, let's do it, I think that's just done. That's basically verbally agreed at that point. Get the fight made, bring him back in maybe February. I feel like what they should do with Paddy Pimblett is put him on a UK guy's card. So either do an Arnold Allen versus the Korean Zombie, and then have Paddy Pimblett in the co-main or feature fight. Or you can have like a Darren Till versus Uriah Hall in the main event, and then have Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon in the co-main event. I know it's a bit of a weird matchup for Paddy Pimblett, and people are talking about stuff like Guram Kutateladze, Mateus Gamrot. Like, he's just won his debut. Let's get him a few wins against some of the ranked opponents that are quite low down, but not too low down. Jared Gordon's on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC. Very capable fighter, but very beatable fighter for a guy who's actually good at fighting. So if Paddy Pimblett's the real deal, he'll go out there and make short work of Jared Gordon, because Jared Gordon, I know he beat Joe Solecki, but he's complete garbage. There's no part of his game that is interesting. He has not got good stand-up. He's not got good wrestling either. Like, he just lays in full guard, lands shots where he can, somehow manages to scathe by in these bouts in very close wins. He's a grinder, though, so he can push a hard pace, and I guess this will test Paddy Pimblett's toughness, his cardio, how hard he can go in grappling situations as well. I think a great matchup for him is Jared Gordon, and I want to see that one happen next. It's a natural progression for Paddy Pimblett. If he wins that one, then he can fight another guy at lightweight, then he can fight a decent guy just outside the rankings at lightweight when he's like 3-0, take on that guy, and if he wins that one, we're looking at ranked opponents. Moving on to another fight that happened on the card, Casey O'Neill got a good win against Antonina Shevchenko on the prelims, and she's 8-0 now, undefeated in the flyweight division. I don't know if she's going to be ranked. She might take number 15 in the flyweight division, because I don't know any other girls that are 3-0 in the company right now. So Casey O'Neill, good win. I think let's take it slow. She's 23 years of age. Let's do her versus Jj Aldridge, in my opinion. I think it's a great matchup to make. I was thinking of maybe doing stuff like Vivian Araújo or a Taylor Santos or something like that. But I'm realizing now, you don't want to cancel out all of these girls. You don't want to make, with Shevchenko as queen, the other Shevchenko, not the fucking pathetic Shevchenko sister that's absolute dog shit in comparison. The real Shevchenko, Valentina Shevchenko. You can't just, with her as queen, you can't just keep cancelling out contenders. You need Taylor Santos to rise on her own. You need Miranda Maverick to gather up some storm and some steam and rise on her own again. And Macy Barber to rise back up on her own with robbery decision after robbery decision, who knows. Casey O'Neill versus Jj Aldridge. You don't really want to push Jj Aldridge up the ranking. She's got a bit of a sour record. Let's make that match up. It's reasonable. It makes sense. And in all honesty, the better a division is, the more fights people have outside the rankings. So when girls just jump straight into the top 10, now the top 5, now you're the next opponent for Shevchenko after a 3-fight win streak. It doesn't make any sense. I like a girl like Casey O'Neill, if she does take it slow, 25 years of age, 2 years from now, she's maybe got a record of 14-0, she's looking really good, she's looking really improved, then she can take on a Valentina Shevchenko who might be getting a little bit old, a little bit unmotivated, who knows. Let's build Casey O'Neill against Jj Aldridge. Those are all the fights to make after UFC Vegas 38. Thank you for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later.